Well, guys, Rush has been on many people's minds recently because of this new Tiki Taka Evo that came out. People had to play a ton of Rush. I think it was 60,000 points or something like that. There's been a lot of talk about it. We just got some news, apparently, a little news article that EA are going to add monetization to the mode eventually at some point, which we'll talk about that and just kind of the Rush experience in general and what that's like. I finally got the Tiki Taka Evo, and I think it probably took me 20 games. I played by myself, and it's going on the Schlupp card. If any of you have the Schlupp card at all anywhere, this card is one of my favorites I've used all year. And going along with this, I want you guys to send me your teams. Send me your teams, and if there's any Evos in there, I'd love to see their in-game stats as well. Pretty much show me tactics if you want to. Just send me whatever you think is interesting or necessary for looking at your team. Send it to me on Twitter or on PSN. My PSN is A-J-3-4. If you guys would like to buy coins, you can go to MMOXP.com. There will be a link in the description. They are the cheapest and safest option. You can use my code JFC at checkout for a 5% discount. We'll make a video with your teams in the next coming days here. And also, interestingly, warning you guys right now, we have some news to talk about, but leaks, there's none. We have no Evo leaks, no player leaks, no nothing at all right now. And it's strange because, you know, today's Monday content. We have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. 4 days of content left during this promo and nothing so far to show for it in terms of leaks. So if you go to Twitter, if you're watching this later in the day, you guys will probably see something, would be my guess. And if not, I don't know. That's a whole nother topic of discussion. But okay, Mendy came out. He's actually not that expensive. I mean, he's not cheap, but 640 is probably less than I thought he was going to be. I know his stats, like for example, defending is only 87, only 85 interceptions, no base intercept, no base bruiser, right? This card actually, low-key, I think the Evo Mendy's probably better if you did him like a month ago, but I don't know. It's Mendy. He's going to be good. If you guys have already used him, let us know in the comments if you liked him. But okay, then we got the A Star is Born Evo, and this one was, people thought it actually was glitched right away because it only went to 74, right? You put in this Cecina card that I've got here. I luckily bought all the silvers like one day that I thought could fit into an Evo one day. So I bought Cecina, Minte, Vicky Lopez. We're like all extinct now, I'm pretty sure. So just, you know, for the future, guys, if there's no silver Evo out, just make sure you guys go and do that. But people thought, oh my God, this is kind of game breaking because they're going to fit in every Evo coming up here, obviously, right? Was this a glitch? And actually, Cecina fits in another Evo. This card here fits into the complete winger. So he actually gets more of a stat boost, even though I think it's just like 3 passing and that's all he gets, I believe. But the thing is, of course, with stat caps now, the overall rating really doesn't mean that much actually anymore because, yeah, it might fit into the Evo, but it just might not literally upgrade a single stat. We've seen some of those cards in the past or earlier this year where like a card will fit into an Evo, but literally there's no stat increases whatsoever because their card already fits into the stat cap. So really, it doesn't really change much, honestly. There's still an upside to it being 74 because it'll fit into like every Evo coming up here that isn't a one playstyle plus Evo. So you always have that chance of getting stat upgrades, but this isn't like game breaking really. The overall just doesn't really mean as much as it used to. Now, let me know who you guys picked here, but of course the play styles aren't crazy. Like they definitely have some cons. Like these cards have some cons, but you can also put that Tiki Taka one onto one of these cards before you end up going and putting it in that Evo. So there's a lot of things you can do there. Now, I will say quickly, random side note, Maradona, I've heard a lot of mixed things about. Some have said he's just not kind of as good as they thought he would be, and some say he's like one of the best dribblers in the game. There was that I was seeing a bunch of. Then I saw this on Twitter where all the rage has been about N'Golo Kante and that he's really, really good. And make it make sense. Only one stat, 90 plus, plays like he has 5 90 plus stats. Unbelievable card. And that's how some of these cards have always tended to be in FIFA. If you're new to the series, there's always certain cards that play above their stats, play below their stats, and it's always trying to find which ones actually do that and are the important part. And that's a very important factor when picking any Evo. Like this Neymar Evo, even though stats aren't absolutely crazy on this card, he's going to be better than you would expect because he's just Neymar. He has the dribbling animations, got unique body type. It is important to remember that going into this type of Evo. Like if you Evo a bronze card up, he probably won't get these like weird animations, the jam you could say, as well as some cards that are base high rated cards, for example. Those are always seemingly like they have animations, like maybe Phil Foden would have more dribbling animations, and maybe animations isn't even the right word there, but we over the years of FIFA have been able to tell that there are certain players that are just better than certain players even with identical stats. So always keep that in mind when you're doing an Evo. But okay, on to the title of the video now. We have a FIFA U Team tweet that's very interesting because I looked all over the place for an article that said this exact stuff and I couldn't find it. So this must be a leak or something like that. And the reason I'm taking it as something that's reliable is because FIFA U Team usually doesn't tweet out shit that isn't reliable. And also Mateus Gamer reposted this. And as you can see right here, he's like the EA Creator Network. He covers a lot of football gaming news and information. So he reposted this. So I'm assuming he thinks or knows like this is legit. And he's had leaks in the past and stuff like that. So I'm taking this as in he's not reposting posting this unless this is legit information. So, okay, what does EA say about Rush? Well, it is the second most played mode in EA Sports FC, which I guess that means that what's the first? Maybe Division Rivals, you would say, is probably first there, or Squad Battles is first, maybe? I would assume it's Division Rivals, but honestly, with how casual FC is, and we're noticing that more, if you go into a Rush game, you can see how casual FC is. For many players out there, I wonder if it is Squad Battles or if it's Rivals, or how close those two are. The second bullet point, though, is the big one. Has not been directly monetized yet, but is expected to be additive in the long run. I'm assuming he means added in the long run, maybe? I don't know if that's supposed to be additive or if that's just not right English, but we all get the point there anyway. Players have responded very positively to the mode, sure. Last bullet point, Rush is seen as a net positive for the franchise both now and in the future. But okay, let's begin with the directly monetized part. I guess there could be cosmetics, maybe, in terms of like equipment your player can have in Rush, or celebrations, goal theatrics like the fireworks or whatever. Cosmetics, I think, would make sense. You can kind of fit that in anywhere, honestly, into anything. But I do wonder if it's not just cosmetics. How do you make Rush directly monetizable? I don't know what they would do. I guess, what do you guys think they would do to make it directly monetized like that? Like, the other game modes aren't directly monetized apart from draft, so I don't know what exactly they would do for that. But anyway, it's not great for us, right? Anything that's going to be like, hey, it's going to be monetized in the future, that's pretty much never a positive for us. It's only a negative when something like that's going to be now monetized directly, quote unquote, even by FIFA U Team. Players responding very well to the mode. I think that honestly, Rush is mostly positive. I think Rush is actually a good addition to the game. The problem is, of course, the teammates are clearly the biggest problem, and the teammates goes hand in hand with the Rush point bonuses as well, because they just don't pick them, right? You have a casual come in who just doesn't give a fuck and has no idea even what the point bonuses are even for, just raw dogging a gold bone Mati when there's no bonuses. Like, there's just nothing for the gold bone Mati. He just picks him right away and then walks in the game and plays like horse shit and plays striker all game. I mean, that's the biggest problem, is the teammates, because the mode itself, post I think the changes of the game time, is pretty good. Like, I think it's in a pretty good spot if you don't at all include the teammate part, which is the biggest part of Rush. That to me is obviously a big issue. That how do you really fix that? You probably need skill-based matchmaking in there. You'd probably need a division-based bracket of like Elite Division to Div 2, Div 3 to Div 6, and Div 6 and up, or something like that. Very broad matchmaking terms, but that's probably what you would need if you actually want there to be a big change in teammates. Or what you could do if you want it to be open matchmaking still, is give us an option to stick with our teammates. If you end up with a 4 that works well together, passes the ball, knows what they're doing, give us an option to actually stay with those players into the next game. And also, there's a bit of a rock and a hard place too, because you want Rush to be more casual. I think that's their goal, obviously. And they give out Rush points mostly the same to winning and losing. I think there's like a 500 point difference, I believe. So you could make it where like it's a double points if you win or something like that. But then if you're stuck with bad teammates, it makes it even worse. It might give them more incentive to win. But if they just suck in general, that's not going to do anything. If they suck and they're trying to win anyway, the point bonus isn't going to matter. So it's definitely a tough one, because you want it to be casual. I would personally stop giving goal objectives, though. I think that's never a great idea. But this is kind of a problem that many games are actually facing right now, not even just FIFA, because you want to make maybe one mode casual. You want to make a casual mode in there, because everything's so uber competitive nowadays that people want kind of a break a little bit from the uber competitiveness. But then also, those game modes tend to be very frustrating because your teammates obviously probably aren't going to be very good. And that directly affects you in terms of the point bonuses. They might make you waste more time by playing more games. There's a lot that goes into like trying to make a casual mode that is rewarding still for many people, and it's hard. But of course, what do you guys think is the best solution? Is it just skill-based matchmaking, or what do you think it is? But anyway, the big point from this video is going to make is really, it's probably going to start being monetized more soon, which isn't a surprise, but that tends to not be a good thing for us. But just be aware of that. And there was also this Andrew Wilson quote that I did talk about, I think a few weeks back when we first saw this. But if you have not seen it, he basically talked about how he thinks the servers are fine. It's generally one of the more stable FCs apparently compared to last year's. But the problem is, when we think of server delays, we're rarely thinking of servers in terms of hopping on the game and playing it every day. Like the servers working, letting us on Ultimate Team, letting us finish games without disconnects. That's rarely what we're actually talking about. We're talking about the delay in gameplay, and that's not something Andrew Wilson will have any idea about. So when he hears server issues, he's thinking in his head like, yeah, well, the servers have been barely down all year. What's the problem? Well, that's not at all what we mean by server issues. So anytime he talks about it, it's not going to mean anything at all, because he's not going to understand what anybody means by the actual server issues. And we do actually have one card that's a slight question on whether it's going to be an SPC or an objective. Bombito down here, we've not seen yet. And he, if we zoom in a bit, it looks like this. This is his official card, actually, I believe, by the way. way. Bruiser plus 97 pace is pretty crazy for a center back. I mean, that actually, I'm telling you, actually still be a pretty crazy card. Pace for center backs does mean a lot right now post-patch, but like Fran Kirby, I don't think we've seen yet, and I think that's it from this whole page. I think those are the only cards we have not seen yet. There's just 2, which usually a mini release is going to be at least 3. I think we've seen everybody else here. Yeah, I think we have. So I don't know. Maybe both these guys will end up being like a draft objective or something like that. That'll make sense. But that's the closest thing right now to leak. So we have. There's nothing else really in the entire game besides that. And the last thing I want to touch on here is the squad battles crashing problem that just has been a problem since launch, really, and it's only getting worse seemingly since I'd say the last few patches. It's a PC problem. It's a console problem. It's literally everywhere, and it seems to be after you score a goal. And I think most people have narrowed it down to a goal you score late in the game, but that's about the only thing that's like consistent with this, and it's just not acceptable, really. I mean, you got 12 matches to play now, and 2 of those you get 0 points in. So I mean, good luck getting Elite 1 if you really want to get to Elite 1. Yeah, I mean, you've got conspiracies around it where it's like it only happens when you're winning, or it's been happening since 22. Nothing's been done to fix it. It seems very suspicious, and of course, I'd never immediately rule out anything that's malicious from EA, but I would guess that it's simply a crashing issue because it hasn't been this bad, I feel like, besides this year. And there is an EA forum thread that's huge that just that's not been addressed. So I don't know. We'll wait and see when they address it, but I don't know if they know how to fix it. I think it would be fixed already if they did know. And briefly about the market, obviously we talked about how nothing seems to rise. We've gone a month without a big market rise. But if you think about it, right now still is one of the best times in terms of probability to buy a team, because you've got 4 or 5 days here of grassroots grades where nothing's really leaked. Nothing big probably is coming out. You've got Fantasy FC this Friday that usually is very expensive. The cards are live. That's why they're mostly expensive. All things considered, usually that's a pretty good time to buy, actually. So I think it's going to be your best probability in terms of buying a team and having it do okay in price. So, okay, on to your comments now. We got 13 Guns, who says, for my personal view, from playing FIFA since it was launched way back on Mega Drive, we have a content issue. So when I play MLB The Show, I can play it for months and get not very far in terms of content. That's what FIFA is lacking. Some good SBCs that are achievable, but more importantly, content for us to do. I'll say this, I'm fucking bored, man. I'm coming on, having a few games, then logging out. I'm the sort of player who can sit for 12 hours and grind like hell. And why I wanted to read that whole comment was for that last sentence, because a couple things. Some would read this sentence and say, I can play it for months and get not very far in terms of content. That's what FIFA is lacking. People would say, well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want a game where you can play for months and not get very far in terms of content? So that's where people would be like, okay, FIFA are actually beating MLB The Show in that way, right? But your point once again, where it's like, I want to grind for something. I want to actually have something to do for all like 12 hours, right? I can sit for 12 hours and grind like hell. The issue is these are not mutually exclusive. Like you can have both of these things where you can have things that take a while to get up to, but then also get a pretty good team pretty quickly. Right now, we literally have that system. The only issue is we can't grind to get that next step. You actually have to spend FIFA points to get it. To get this R9 card, this Johan Cruyff, these Team of the Year cards, there is no way to grind up to them in terms of menu content. You have to spend money to get there if you want to actually feasibly get there. You've heard me say this before, but there is no League SBC method anymore to actually earn coins. And that's a big issue for us, not for EA, but for the player base, because you can't, there's no actually sitting there grinding for 12 hours a day and genuinely getting the best team in the game. Yes, you'll be rewarded to a degree for grinding 12 hours a day in this game, because you can do League SBCs, you can get untradeable fodder, but at the end of the day, that grinding for 12 hours, your team compared to like my team who grinds for a few hours a day in terms of not just menu content, but just talking like gameplay stuff and your standard pretty hardcore FC Ultimate Team player, my team will look no different than his. And that's a problem, because yeah, you're right, you'll be bored. If you're a person who actually wants to grind the game, you can't. There just isn't an option to do that anymore, because it was just too good in EA's eyes. They didn't like the fact that it was possible to even grind for 12 hours and get that Team of the Year R9, just as a hypothetical. They didn't like that you could grind for 12 hours a day, even though it would take 2 months of grinding 12 hours a day to get one player in your team that might have been worth 6 million coins. You had those coins tradable. Just the thought of that, one card in your team worth 6 mil to be able to grind up and afford, was just too much for them to handle. They just couldn't fucking do it. Thanks, FUT Economist. Don't sue me, please, but damn, everything went downhill when you joined. Just a massive coincidence, I suppose. But moving on, there were actually a lot of comments yesterday saying like, wait, there's mods of this game? Yeah, if you have the PC version, there's a lot of mods, like career mode mods. Yeah, there's a modding community out there that's actually really strong, very talented group of guys as well that are the FIFA modders. Same with the Madden modders out there, the other like Frostbite engine modders that can literally make can make a better game than than EA can actually, and they work on 9 to 5. They just come over, they come home and they mod a little bit, change some things up, and make a fucking better game than what EA do. Of course, EA make the fucking, like, the whole bones of the game, obviously, but they do a great job over there. Ed Zombies, you know, talks about the community being bitchy or whatever, but this comment's a very similar sentiment to what I've been reading a lot, and that's people saying, I enjoy the game, or whatever, saying like, yeah, I'm actually having fun. And, you know, if you're having fun, then that's awesome. I'm really happy for you. I do think right now, even the state of this game is probably better than last year's game. Content plus gameplay wise, I do genuinely still think it's better than last year's game, which of course, I mean, I hope it was better, because last year's game might be the worst. Last year's game might be the worst FC we've ever played, honestly. Yeah, I saw a Reddit post the other day that's like, is anybody else having fun with the game? And there were a lot of comments being like, yeah, I like the game a lot, and I'm happy you do. And TKD says, I think he was talking about balance of competitions. We talked yesterday about Andrew Wilson saying he wanted to change the balance of the game, which we didn't really know what that meant. So TK thinks he's talking about the balance of competitions. Since Champs became the elite players' playground and Rivals was so time-consuming plus unbalanced gameplay. After all, they lowered conditions in both of those competitions, and that is true. And that, I hope, is something they actually think about. Like, if he was talking about game modes, Jesus Lord have mercy, I would just love to see different game modes in this game. You've heard me say this a million times. I'm so sorry if you've been here for a long time. Guys, the game modes would help so much make this game more fun. If they could find a tournament mode, something like that, a Champions League type mode that's casual, that would genuinely help the fun aspect of this game a ton, because EA forgets sometimes that fun is important. Even if you want to make the game as addicting as possible, you have to keep them on the game. Which, how do you do that? You have to have some sort of fun. And a very easy way to do that is just to give us a game mode that we can actually play every day, earn some rewards for. It's casual. I know it's not easy to do per se, but we're going on, I mean, how many years straight of no knockout tournament game mode? I mean, we're talking FIFA 18, was it? Or 17? Was it 17 since the DKT? I mean, that's insane. We're going to be on the 9th straight FIFA if next year comes out and nothing's changed, where we don't have another mode like that. That's unbelievable. But okay, hey, thanks for listening and being here. I love every single one of you. I'll say this for everyone. Peace.